Hello, everyone. Father Norm here again. I know you'll probably see this in a couple days. This very day, it's Monday of that week after Thanksgiving, and of course, people call it Cyber Monday because of the opportunity to get online and buy all kind of stuff. I know we have this Advent season that most Christian traditions recognize, and one of the main themes of Advent is waiting, waiting with expectant hope. And I've had some people through the years tell me, and again, I get it. They say, well, Advent doesn't mean that much to me. What does waiting have to do with real everyday life? Let's get to Christmas. That's when Jesus was born. That's when we recognize God shared our humanity. Yes, that is important, but there's a value in waiting. And I want to tell a few stories because stories, true stories, sometimes can illustrate a richer understanding of what it means to wait. So the first one I remember talking to a woman probably a year or two ago, and she was talking and lamenting that she had waited to get some of her groceries for Thanksgiving until the night before Thanksgiving. She had gotten other stuff, but she thought, no, there's still a few things I need. So of course she went. And she said it was miserable because the night before Thanksgiving, the grocery store was jammed, it was crowded, the parking lot, the people, the long line. And she said the whole time she was regretting, I should have come a few days earlier. This is awful, that waiting. And then, though, she mentioned it took the next day of Thanksgiving. It was a beautiful Thanksgiving, and it helped her look back at the previous day, and instead of just be miserable, to say, okay, I waited. I wish I would have done it sooner, but hey, this is what I waited for, and this was a beautiful occasion. I'm glad we had the food. So it gave her a different perspective on that waiting. Here's another real life story. A fella talked to me, in fact, actually fairly recently, telling you I'm referring this to you on Cyber Monday, and I think it was a couple of years ago that he bought some stuff on Cyber Monday that he was interested in getting at a sale price. And he told me at that time, he said he was so mad because the people had said, you will get this in your home within 2 days. Well, 2 days came and went, 3 days came and went, 4 days came and went, and he finally got what they promised in 2 days. And he admitted those whole extra 2 days, he was miserable. Why isn't it here now? What's wrong? What's what they're shipping? And then he too, later on, not in the moment, looked back and had to laugh at himself because he saw, hey, this was Cyber Monday. He still had 3 weeks before this was to be sent out and received to people, that getting so upset, which on the one hand you can understand, but on the other hand, looking back, he saw, wow, I did this to myself. I should have waited more patiently. Third example then about waiting and getting a perspective on it, which is what his Advent is all about. I was listening just recently to a reporter, believe it or not, talking to people coming down I-90 from New York yesterday, and the snow and just the waiting, and so I guess she was in a place, rest stop or something, and she thought she'd interview a few people. And a couple of them said, this was miserable, we should have left earlier, maybe we shouldn't have even gone for Thanksgiving, this is the worst day of my life. Again, very understandable. On the other hand, here was a woman she talked to who basically said this to her, said, she said, I learned a long time ago when I was on retreat at my church about the importance of waiting, and whatever we're in the middle of, or we're eager, we're patient to get out of this, how to still be open and find something good and find God's grace in the present moment. So she talked about her family was coming back from where they had celebrated with family members in another state. And she said, coming back, yep, they were in the snow. Yes, it was slow going, but that what they did, she said, was to take some time because her family was there and move out of the negative thinking and talk about some positive. So even with their teenage kids and her spouse, they talked a little bit about the family, the wider family they had just been with, and what that meant to them, and how precious it was. And then they talked a little about memories of past Thanksgivings. Again, positive things that put them in a more positive attitude. And even though obviously still having to go slow moving in the car, that instead of focusing on that, focusing on part of the reason they were there is because they went to their family and they celebrated what that meant and how good family was, and the memories. And they even began to talk a little bit more about past Christmases as a family. And so the conversation was very good. It was very directed. And so by the time they got home, they were in a good way. That she had learned a long time ago from this retreat that traveling in all of that, you can be upset, you can be negative, it can be the worst day of your life, or with prayer and with a positive attitude, with faith, you can turn it into a retreat experience. So she said her family, and she helped lead it, had about a 4-hour retreat experience reflecting on the good rather than being miserable for 4 hours. And finally, we talked about that, and she said that in this experience, she had remembered the retreat, talked about the waiting example of Mary, the mother of Jesus, and Joseph for that matter. Obviously, Mary pregnant with Jesus and having to go to Bethlehem, which was a lengthy trip. Probably saying, why is this happening on, when I'm 9 months pregnant and then no room in the inn. But again, even in the stable, rather than being negative and hostile, saying, hey, the Lord our God is with us and has brought to birth this beautiful child, and every step of the way it was worth it. And then of course Mary and Joseph waited too for years, even when they were in exile in Egypt. And then Joseph didn't even get to see Jesus as an adult, and Mary had to wait. He was 30 years old before he started ministry, and Mary, in all that waiting, might have thought, what's he waiting for? God, you said this was going to be the Son of God. But she patiently waited, and is an example for us. So for all of us there, whatever your faith perspective and the faith journey, can we live in the moment? And can we, in whatever the moment is, realize it's not just what happens to us, it's the attitude we take toward it in that circumstances, like that woman who turned it into a retreat for her whole family. Hey, you may have some times to be patient in the coming weeks. Remember this and be open to a God who loves us through it all.